That is it, and what a to be continued that definitely was with the 2 end credit scenes. So if you haven't seen those yet, definitely go check those out, as in this video we're going to be diving into, and I'm going to be giving you guys my reaction and review to the entire WandaVision season or series finale. I don't think this is getting a second season, but just for the second's sake, that maybe it does. This has been a great time discussing with you guys every single night about WandaVision. I have absolutely loved this show, and I will definitely be doing a full spoiler season review later this weekend, as well as ranking every single episode from worst to best. I'm very much excited to be diving into those with you guys later this weekend. So if you guys are new here and you guys love WandaVision, or in general you just love the MCU, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, because I got tons of Marvel content coming up the way. Of course, if you see the Winter Soldier and Falcon pops I have right there, I also have a shirt that I will be graduating to in a couple weeks, because I will be reviewing each and every one of those. So you definitely won't want to miss any of those, guys. As well, please comment down below your guys' thoughts overall on the entire show, and in general your thoughts on this season finale, and maybe some disappointments and pros that you really much had. Overall, again, I've loved WandaVision so far. I've just very much came away just in love, especially last week's episode, which really much hit me in my feels, and this episode definitely hit me in those feels as well. There's a lot that happened in this one, a lot to unpack, and especially for me, I gotta say I wish it was longer. I wish the episode overall was longer. I think there's still a lot of questions that it leaves to be had, which I understand. I understood going in here that we definitely were gonna have a lot of questions that I definitely is gonna need to know, and things that I still am kind of iffy on, but even from that standpoint, even though I think this episode didn't accomplish everything that it needed to, I feel like this episode was it was sentimental, especially when it came down to the emotional moments, the character work, everything, especially when it comes down to Wanda as a character, was superb, and especially tied in so perfectly to last week's episode, and especially everything with Vision. That goodbye with that version of Vision and her kids was very much just heart-shattering, heartbreaking for her character, but we will get to it. Let's start with the beginning of this. Of course, the episode opens up where we left off last week. These big action set piece starts happening. Wanda is fighting Agatha Harkness. They are going at it with the magic. She is absorbing all of her powers, and of course then, as she blasts her through with the car, White Vision comes in and starts really much crushing her head, and absolutely, again, the horror in here was on edge for me. That scene of him crushing her head had me on edge, like, oh my god. Then you knew, of course, Vision's gonna come in and save her. They start tussling and hustling. It just becomes an all-out brawl. The kids are sitting in their room, they're all fighting, and action is ensuing throughout this entire episode. Again, pretty much for the first big half of it all. Of course, they take it into town as Wanda and Agatha are in there. Agatha's pretty much telling her, let me take your powers, let me take them, I'll give you what you want. And she starts showing how these people see her as a villain. These people do not clearly like her. They see what she has done and the pain and grief that she has been feeling. Again, this whole entire world, the scenario, just as Wanda says, was created, just as she created Vision from hope and sadness. That is really much, when you look at it, this entire world was created from all there. And of course, part of the Mind Stone is what also that version of Vision was created from. But of course, again, all the action here, really spectacular, kept you on edge throughout it. And there was a lot of fun moments in there. I liked seeing Vision fight White Vision. I liked seeing Agatha fight Scarlet Witch, or of course, Wanda Maximoff, whichever one you want to call her now, because now she is the Scarlet Witch. There's a lot of fun moments in there. One thing I really want to jump over to, because I think it's something that's super small and we'll kind of tussle into it a little bit more. Monica, I was expecting to have maybe a little bit more action scenes in here. We get some cool moments of her finally being able to, like, don't really understand her powers. Of course, Hayward shoots at the kids. She steps in front of them. They start phasing through her. I don't really know much about her powers or in general her character from the comics. I'm just really much excited to see what they can do with her, because I very much loved her in this show, and I cannot wait to see what they do with her in Captain Marvel too, especially with the end credit scene that she gets. That was really awesome to see nonetheless. But of course, all this sorts of stuff. Hayward gets scared, drives off, gets smashed by Darcy. He's done. He's arrested. That's it for him. Let's jump back over to the Vision stuff, because, you know, when it comes to White Vision and normal Vision, you know, they tussle, they fight. But when it comes down to the end of the day, Vision is a very smart being. He is not just an animatronic, and you know, this is the thing, Chekhov's gun. One of my friends, Ren Geekness, has talked about it. If there's a gun on the wall in the first act, that gun's probably going to go off. They kept mentioning Ultron. no Ultron whatsoever. I know a lot of people were theorizing that, and that is not true. This really much is that Vision, and it looks like our Vision unlocked some of his memories, but I feel like maybe that white Vision still can't dive into it all too much, or in general might just not know what is going on with himself. And it's heartbreaking in that matter. But I really, really, really love how they were able to bring that to life. And when he blasts off into the sky, I think that was us finally seeing that, like, I think he needs to go discover himself, just as we see Wanda's kind of doing at the very end of this episode in her end credit scene. But again, that whole thing worked well. Of course, then it comes down to Wanda versus Agatha. We see some cool moments in there, of course, with when Wanda tries to do the whole manipulation spell on her, just like she did in Age of Ultron, through some big things, like back to Age of Ultron, which I loved. I love seeing that. But of course, that whole moment, that was scary too, when all the witches get up, or the coven gets up, and they come around, and then the tides turn. It turns on Wanda. But you see the little thing, her little headband coming all to pieces. I'm like, oh my god, they're going to bring it. And I knew from that moment we were going to get a new costume for Scarlet Witch herself. And of course, that whole Vision, they blow out, they start fighting in the sky, and the effects, again, horror all throughout this. I got Evil Dead vibes throughout this entire thing. And even some of the things from like some of the old witch horror films that you could watch probably back from the 70s and the 80s that really much kept you on edge. But of course, her whole hands start turning black. Her whole face is kind of like melting in, like when Superman gets hit with the nuke in the comics, or even The Dark Knight Returns, or even Batman versus Superman for that instance. She's throwing her, you see her hit the walls, and at that moment I'm like, she's doing something, she's doing something. And of course, she starts to try and use her powers, and Agatha, it will not let her. She's sitting there, she gets regeneralized, you see the symbol, and she goes, thanks for the lesson. Takes her powers completely, they settle down, the whole world a little bit more settling in, and of course, they lay down right there, and of course, she turns her into the nosy neighbor, because that's the role she wanted to play. And opening into those avenues, I was like, hell yeah, that's how we're doing this. And of course, she is now trapped with whatever. I don't really know where she's trapped at, but she's trapped as the nosy neighbor, which is interesting. And this just shows the power that Scarlet Witch herself has, and it's life-threatening. Now, this whole rest of it, you know, you see her with the cool suit, she kisses her family, she's so happy, and they all go home, because we know what's going to happen. Wanda knows what's best, and you see the Hex start imploding and coming back in, and completely just, yeah, that's it. It's starting to kind of make everything back to normal, and as they're heading back, they're tucking the kids in, and, you know, we got that little glimpse of when she was opening up the Hex for the people to leave. Her kids were disintegrating, Vision was disintegrating, just like we'd seen a couple episodes ago. And you knew what the price had to be paid, what she had to lose. She had to lose the people that she had pretty much lived with for decades and years and eras. And for what probably felt like years for her, you know, even though it was only a couple days to even a couple weeks, it's heartbreaking. It's heart-shattering. And this moment in particular, when they're kissing the kids to bed, was sentimental. And I can't imagine, if you have a kid, how this felt. Or in general, like, I think a lot of us who have a loved one might understand and maybe feel for that and feel for Wanda in those moments. But the moment that really comes is when that last goodbye, she's turning off the lights and Vision turns it on, and he makes up that whole thing, oh, I heard it's bad luck to say goodbye, but it's just because he wanted to see her face. And they have that last passionate moment, and I nearly, you know, again, last week's episode completely broke me, and this moment in particular completely broke me too. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to expect, or I didn't know what to do in that moment. It was just live in the moment. And seeing that moment with Wanda and Vision really broke my heart and completely shattered me in different dimensions. I love that moment and that goodbye. And then seeing, of course, the whole house come down and just her to be left there in the outfit that she had totally broken down and blown up everything in. And that's where that story ends. She walks out, she has that nice discussion with Monica. Everyone's looking at her like they just hate her, and Monica understands. I would have done the same thing for my mom to bring her back. Wanda changes into the costume and flies off, which I can't wait to get a Funko Pop of that costume. I love the iteration of how the Scarlet Witch actually looks, but of course she flies off, and that's it for her. Now, it ends kind of, in a sense, just right there. You know, Hayward gets arrested. Darcy leaves. Who knows where she'll pop up. Jimmy Woo arrests him, does everything he needs to do, which he was just great in here. I love Randall Park. And everything kind of starts wrapping up with a nice little bow. And there's still a couple questions I have. Where did White Vision go? Again, I assume he's kind of like figuring out his own type of world. Same thing with Scarlet Witch. We kind of see, and we'll talk about that in the end credit scene in just a second. A lot of theories didn't come true. No Mephisto, no Nightmare, none of that stuff whatsoever. Agatha's son was not in here. A lot of people were predicting, oh, maybe Pietro Maximoff was that. No, my theory didn't come true. That is not the actual Quicksilver from X-Men. That was just a guy named Ralph. And flat out, that's the one thing I actually didn't truly like. That honestly, out of everything, that's the one thing I think out of this episode, I very much, even though I felt like some certain moments were rushed, especially when it came down to the action, or even some of the finale set pieces with Monica and Darcy and Jimmy Woo, Hayward, a lot of the different things. And this doesn't come down to my theories at all, because I still overall loved the series. It's still some of my favorite MCU content ever, and I'll definitely be discussing that this weekend. But when it came down to certain things, I feel like there were better ideas that could have came about, especially with the stuff when it came down to just him being Ralph. For me, in my head, you know, depending on how Spider-Man 3 goes, of course, we know that they're going to probably dive into the multiverse. We know Doctor Strange is diving into the madness in the multiverse. We know Scarlet Witch's story continues in there. And we know that this, whatever happens in this film, sets up stuff in Spider-Man, starts up in that. It's all connected. And for me, as I left this, I'm like, I don't know particularly how it's all connected, especially because I was expecting, okay, it'll be the Quicksilver, he either goes back, and it's not. And maybe that's just me wondering how it's going to be all connected. I just feel like it was kind of a missed opportunity. And why get Evan Peters in that role if not to just nod at the fans? And if that's really all it is, okay, I get that. But that's just a nitpick. That's me like picking my brain and ideas and kind of wanting a little bit more. And maybe that does come down to my expectations. That's why I'm not letting it totally affect me. But I want to know what your guys' thoughts on there was. To hear what your guys think is. The other thing is Doctor Strange. Nowhere to be seen unless there was another end credit scene that I completely missed. Or I blanked or some stuff like that. But let's talk about the last two end credit scenes. No Vision in these, but the first one was Monica. She's like, hey, we got to go talk in the theater. Okay. I knew the second they went in there that we were either going to see Brie Larson or a Skrull. That lady changes and she points up. I'm assuming she's talking about Captain Marvel. So that's kind of leading into the next one saying, hey, someone wants to talk to you. That's where they're going. The only other person I can think of is Nick Fury, but even then, maybe Nick Fury and her barely had any interaction, but I could be wrong because we don't know any of that timeline. So that's exciting because we are getting Captain Marvel 2 next year, and even swiping into there as well, we go to the last one. I knew there was going to be one more. There's no way they were just going to do that. And of course, it goes over to Wanda Maximoff. It looks to be feeling like Sokovia for me. And of course, you see her doing the whole thing, kind of Doctor Strange vibes from Infinity War when he's checking all the different timelines, but of course going through the book and you hear her kids screaming and torture and all this stuff. So that makes me go to believe that I think she's still going to try and save her kids somewhere. Her kids are real. Her kids are somewhere. I think that is something that we are going to be looking into, and I think we are going to see them pop up in Doctor Strange 2. I think that is something that we are going to look at, but it looks like Doctor Strange, I know a lot of people are predicting that maybe she would be the villain. I'm not getting those villain vibes anymore, especially as she tells Monica, I want to learn how to control this. I think that kind of adds and opens up a little bit more to this entire world now, and I think Doctor Strange is going to be her mentor. I do not think she will be the villain. I could be completely wrong. Maybe she still will be, but I do know one person that is going to be wanting to hunt down a witch, and that is Mordo from the first Doctor Strange, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. That is what he was looking for, so maybe he'll end up being the actual main villain. I don't know. I'm spitballing. I'm done with theorizing. All I know is that this was an exciting show that I really much loved. It was so unique and different. It definitely started transforming into something typically that we would have in Marvel, but I absolutely love the show still. I have my grievances with this last episode, just as I've had with a couple of different things throughout it, but I'm so excited for Falcon Winter Soldier, and I hope you guys will tune in for that. If you guys like this energetic energy and just that fun conversation that you would have with your best friend, this is the way that I do it with WandaVision. Let me know your guys' theories, thoughts, if you still want to theorize for what's going to happen with Wanda in the next time we see her, even maybe with Monica, what's going to happen to Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, how will it all connect? Let's discuss it all down there, guys. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as comment down below again and let me know all your full thoughts. I'll make sure to catch you guys soon with the Falcon Winter Soldier. It's coming in 2 weeks. I can't wait, guys, and I hope you guys tune in for those 2 videos I have coming later this weekend. So, of course, guys, until next time, stay classy, stay safe, and I'll miss you guys.